Israel is a nation that has had to hang tough like no other country on earth. But what makes Israelis so resilient? Tonight, we'll be joined by three inspiring figures, Natan Sharansky, Miri, Eisin, and Tal Brody, and we'll find out. I'm Michael Dickson, and this is Stand With Us TV Live. Hello and welcome to Stand With Us TV Live. Thank you for joining us. We have a special show for you today. But just before we begin, we want to tell you about a very special online event that's taking place on September the 9th. Now, as you know, at Stand With Us, we're not just about education, we're all about inspiration. So get ready to be inspired. Our event, A Tapestry of Voices for Israel. It will feature some amazing, diverse people from many different backgrounds and from all around the world. And they'll tell us why they actively support Israel. We'll also hear the voices of students who've been on the fight against anti-Semitism on their college campuses and high schools. And we'll watch the artist Solomon Souza create a new portrait of Theodore Herzl that we'll auction off at the end of the show. There'll be comedy from Ilan Gold and much, much more. So that's September the 9th. Save the date for A Tapestry of Voices for Israel. You can see the link there. And we very much hope you'll join us on September the 9th. Now, today's show is streaming all across Stand With Us digital platforms. It's never been easy to get involved. So please do tell us where you are tuning in from by posting in the comments on YouTube or Facebook. Let us know, and you'll see it come up across the screen. And don't forget, if you love the work of Stand With Us and you want to support it, you can do at standwithus.com/donate. That's standwithus.com/donate. Thank you very much. Today, we're going to meet three of the 14 Israelis featured in my new book, ISResilience, What Israelis Can Teach the World, co-written by a resilience expert, Dr. Naomi Baum. Now, you know, inside of Israel's DNA is the understanding that survival isn't an option, it's a necessity. And in our book, you'll meet the Israelis who thrive against all odds and learn how you can too. Our guests today embody that resilience, and we start with the basketball superstar that truly put Israel on the map. Tal Brody, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to join you, Michael. And I'd have to congratulate you on your book. In the 54 years that I'm in Israel, I do have to say it's a resilient country. And I'm very proud to be associated with Stand With Us. I mean, I've seen your work from the first day that you started the organization. And traveling all over the world, I have seen that what you have done with the organization. It's amazing, and it's very helpful to not only the students in the universities, but anybody that's traveling and every Israeli that goes out of the country, and people that are fighting, I guess, on the universities mostly, to give them the ammunition to go up against BDS, the hate and the anti-Jewish or anti-Israel activities that are on the campuses. So really, congratulations on what you've been doing.
Thank you so much. And resilience has really been part of the story of Stand With Us since our inception in 2001. We started in the living room of Jerry and Roz Rothstein, who together with Esther Renza founded the organization. And from a living room in LA to all over the world, it's become a movement. And you've become such a critical part of that because of what you do. And you are such an ambassador for Israel. I want to come to all of that. So much I want to talk to you about. You are, of course, a basketball legend. And in this book, we identify the keys to ISResilience. One of those keys is flexibility. And I think you embody this because in the 1960s, you had a choice. On the one hand, you had the opportunity of being in the 12th draft of the NBA. You were in the top 10 players in the United States. You made a decision instead of carrying on down that path to take a very different path and play in Israel, which I'm sure was a very different experience. You probably turned down millions. Tell Take us back to that decision and what went through your head at that time.
Well, to go back to 1965 and graduating the University of Illinois, the Fighting Illini. We had great teams during my years there. We're number 3 in the nation, winning the Kentucky Invitational, winning the championship at the Madison Square Garden, and to be selected as within the top 10 players in the United States coming out of college with Billy Cunningham, Rick Barry, Jerry Sloan, Bill Bradley, Gail Goodrich. We had an unbelievable college all-star team. At that time, the Washington Wizards were the Baltimore Bullets. Abe Pollin was the owner of the team. And if I thought in my wildest dreams that I would give up a dream of playing in the NBA to take a challenge and to play in Israel, it was something which I never even thought about. But in 1965, it was the 7th Maccabi Games. And the USA, Maccabi USA, invited me to join the USA team for 2 weeks to go to Israel. Abe Pollin, the owner of the Baltimore Bullets, Washington Wizards, said, okay, it's no problem. It's July, August, and make sure you're ready to come back. And by going to Israel, the excitement of the Maccabi Games, and after we won even the gold medal in the basketball tournament, Maccabi Tel Aviv, the president was a fellow called Noah Klieger. He was he passed away recently, and he was a famous writer, but he came through the concentration camps coming to Israel. And when he came up to speak with me, and I saw the numbers on his hand, on his arm, that reminded me when he presented me with a challenge of coming to Israel, when Israel was going through a very serious recession. People weren't smiling, boycotts all around Israel within the Arabic countries. And when he said to me that, look, if a young Jewish kid like you would come to Israel for a year, you can change the whole sport in Israel, and maybe change for sure the basketball, which never got past the first round of the European Championship. And that reminded me when I was looking at his arm in August, he was wearing a short-sleeved shirt, that growing up in the States in the 60s, all the movies that we would see were about World War II. Our heroes were like Audie Murphy. And here I'm a kid in the States, and what could I do to go against the Nazis, or to go against what's happening with the Jewish communities? And I always felt that was missing, that there wasn't anything that I can do. I had college ahead of me. And here's a guy that went all through that period of time, and he's asking me to take 1 year out of my life and to come to Israel. Now, adding on to that my father was in Israel from 1921 to 23, came in from Russia, Poland. And my grandfather was in Israel from 1921 to 1931. And from what I remember, they were part of the crew that built the first electric station in Israel in Naharaim, and also the first airport in Herzliya. So before they eventually made Yeridah to the United States, and my father after 3 years, my grandfather after 10 years. And here's the situation, that taking up this challenge meant more to me at that period of time. Bill Bradley, Senator Bill Bradley, he's already retired. He decided to give up the NBA to go for a Rhodes Scholar in London. Eventually, Billy Cunningham and Rick Barry, they didn't go to the NBA because there wasn't any. It wasn't like after David Stern, and it wasn't like being picked 12th in the draft today. You're signing for $4 million a year, 2 years no cut, and then it opens up. If you're still in after your third year, it could jump up to $8 million a year. But
and what was on the other side, Tal? Maccabi Tel Aviv was not the team it is now. What was it like?
Well, as I said, it wasn't. First of all, it wasn't like giving up $24 million in 4 years or anything like that. But the Israeli basketball is very primitive. But I felt that I had enough ability and to do what they asked me to do is to change the environment of the country, the mood of the country, to make a difference and to bring a spirit and make the Israelis feel proud that Israel can be a sport-loving country and a sport country with achievements. And I felt that I had the ability to do this. So I said, well, now, you know what? Here's a chance that I couldn't do anything when I was a kid growing up with the Nazis and what was happening in Germany with the Jewish communities. And now I have an opportunity to help Israel to become a nation that's known for sport. I mean, take our team. We already, since that, we won 6 European basketball championships, 1 international championship. We've been playing NBA teams. I've been helping Maccabi Tel Aviv coming into the States for the last 20 years, playing the New York Knicks, Los Angeles Lakers, Clippers, Miami Heat. Who would think an Israeli team could go up and be on the same floor with these teams? And at the end of that journey, knowing that I made that right decision, I was invited to cut the ribbon at the James Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts, between the great teams of the Los Angeles Lakers and the great teams of the Boston Celtics, 11 championships. You have an Israeli team, Maccabi Tel Aviv, that, for Israel's 60th birthday, we were honored and giving the first exhibition for a team outside the USA in the James Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame.
Incredible.
So that journey from a team that never went past the first round of the European Championship to be with the team and winning our first European Championship, beating the Russians. And it wasn't the Russians, it was the Soviet Union team that beat in that controversial game in the 72 Olympics. And they refused to play us for 7 years, the Soviet Union team, which took all the Luka Doncics from all the Slovenian and Croatia and Serbia and Ukraine.
In 77. In 77, Maccabi Tel Aviv made it to the EuroLeague basketball semifinals, first time in history. And you famously beat the Soviet team. And then, of course, you coined your catchphrase. I'm going to say, you knew I was going to say it, Tal, right? We're on the map and we're staying on the map, not only in sports, but in everything. And you said it in Hebrew and it became an iconic moment. What did that moment mean for you? And what did that moment mean for Israel?
Well, it meant so much for Israel, but also it meant for our team. And for Israel, it was an unbelievable feeling. It was a period of time with Natan Sharansky, Let My People Go. We're only 30 years after Israel was established as the state of Israel in 48, and now we're in 1977. And here we're going up against the Soviet Union that refused to play us for 7 years, not to be embarrassed because they were advisors, the military advisors of all the 20-some Muslim countries around us that were trying to throw us into the sea. And here in 77, they told the Soviet government, I asked Sergei Belov for many years, we would meet at the NBA All-Star Weekend, and I asked him, how come in 77 you agreed to play us when you refused all those years? He said, because we beat the United States team in the 72 Olympics, the Soviet Union government agreed that they would play us on a neutral floor, not in Tel Aviv, not in Moscow. But they made a mistake that they chose the smallest gym in Virton, Belgium, 500 people, but they didn't estimate that 498 would be Israelis and also Jews from Europe that filled that stadium. 498 cheering for us, 2 KGB agents cheering for us. How could we lose this game? So we won 91-70, 79, and then we went on to the finals against Mobile Georgi Vereza, and we won in Belgrade. The games were in Belgrade, and that was the first time that we won this championship. So out of all that excitement, where every place we would play, Israel was figured that we never had a map that looked like Israel, who we were. And so that must have been on my mind to take that feeling and just let it go out of the excitement. After the game, people were dancing the Horav and singing Chavenu Shalom Aleichem Am Yisrael Hai. The excitement was so ecstatic that it just came out of my heart. It just flew out of it. It just flew out. But the meaning, I only understood when we got back to Israel, when Prime Minister Rabin invited us. our team to his premises, his offices, and he said that, Tal, you can't believe what that meant to the people of Israel, because 1973 in the Yom Kippur War, we lost more than a few thousand soldiers, and another more than a few thousand were injured. And carrying that medal in their bodies up to now, and the country's in mourning. And here comes a basketball team that brings the whole of Israel into the streets, celebrating just like it's another Independence Day. And it gave encouragement to other sportsmen in judo, where our judo team is now some of the best judoists in the world. Who would believe that now we have a normalization agreement with Abu Dhabi and Dubai with the UAE, but who would believe that they would play Hatikva, within the UAE in Abu Dhabi, I believe it was, and our players were allowed to play with the Magen David. So that encouraged the judo, windsurfing, other sports, rhythmic gymnastics. That today we're in the middle. That even we won medals in the Olympics. Yael Arad, the first judo Olympics. Gal Friedman with the windsurfing, Arik Zeevi,
Sagi Moki on our show recently.
So it's amazing that the basketball has brought the encouragement and the feeling that we can do it. We used to play in the Asian Games, and the last Asian Games I played were, believe it or not, were in Tehran, and. Luckily the Iranian team lost in the semifinals, and we went on to win the championship in the finals. But because our athletes became so good in Asia, and in the Asia Olympics, all the Muslim countries participated. So they voted us out of the Asian Games, but we, as far as our ability, were able to participate in all the European championships and win, as I said, 6 times the European basketball championship.
Incredible. Tal, we have people who are watching us and sending you their best from Brazil, from Morocco, from Switzerland, from Argentina right now, from the UK, from France, from Los Angeles, Cleveland, New York, Rockville, Idaho, Florida, Maryland, and Ohio, many more, which is amazing. I want to talk a bit about your role as an ambassador for Israel. You're a goodwill ambassador for Israel. You're such a positive personality. It's one of the roots of your resilience, is that positivity, that dynamism. Everyone's seeing it right now. Tell us a bit about what you do, because I know in particular you speak to students everywhere, but you also speak to African-American students and tell them about opportunities in Israel.
Yes. Well, first of all, it's a position which I agreed to do voluntarily. They never had a position in the Israeli government for an ambassador of goodwill. And I agreed to, at the age of 10 years ago, at the age of 65, I agreed to take on that position after I sold my pension agency. And I've been doing it for 10 years. In the States, I'm coming in, basically speaking to African-American groups, a variety of Christian groups, Jewish groups, and on the campuses from coast to coast, Penn, Temple, Yale, Harvard, up to UCLA. And it's amazing because I meet many of the Jewish students, and I do have to say, luckily, Stand With Us was formed because they're using basically the information that they're getting from you, and it's very important. And it's very important. It helps them a lot to beat a lot of the BDS decisions on campuses. But we become, within the last decade, we're a small minority on the campuses. And they have to compete against the growing Muslim populations and organizations on the campuses. So they're getting to many more students on the campuses with their platforms, and the Jewish students do try to do their best in atmosphere.
What's your message to the students when you meet them, particularly non-Jewish students? What do you want them to know about Israel?
Well, basically, the policy is to really not to be that aggressive or whatnot, and not to talk about, what the other side, how bad the other side and what they're doing as far as to the Israeli side. whether it's injuring or knifing or shooting or murdering or whatnot, to present who basically we are. So I think we're at a disadvantage on the campuses because we don't really go into how we're affected in our daily lives. You're talking about resilience.
Yeah.
The strength of Israel is the resilience. If you look at what's happening in the south with hundreds of rockets and daily, I have that red alert, and all the time in the middle of the night I'm hearing the red alert, and that's in the southern part of Israel. Now you have what they call Merkaz Hosen. It's a resilience center, and when you speak to people in the world, they say, "Oh, wait a minute, you didn't have anybody injured, you didn't have anybody killed." You know how many people have psychological damage because what is happening in the South. So this we have to explain. I explained to the students we're not an apartheid state. When I ask them, what do they think about apartheid? They always relate to, well, we know what's in South Africa or whatnot. And I have to explain to them, well, we're not South Africa. And we said, well, there are African Americans there, there are, blacks in Israel. And I started to tell them, of course, we with the Ethiopian community, over 120, 130,000 we saved from Ethiopia. And we have, even in our basketball league, over 800 African American basketball players love playing in Israel and are playing in Israel. And many have also decided they want to live in Israel. Mamara Stoudemire, Olsey Perry, that there's a movie going around in the States now that just started. It's a shame that I don't know if people are allowed to go to the movies anymore with the coronavirus, but in the Jewish film festivals, you have the On the Map movie, and you also have an amazing movie on Olsey Perry, 6'8" African-American basketball player that decided to have his life in Israel even after basketball. So talking of why Israel is not an apartheid state. No place in the world is 100% perfect. Israel is not a perfect country, but it's not an apartheid country.
And you tell students that very clearly when you go and see them, and you've got such a unique perspective. Tal, I want to thank you for being part of this and part of the book. You're such a national treasure. And I know, I'll share it with our audience, that today's your birthday. So actually we have here for you, take a look at this, a birthday cake. There you go. It's a basketball birthday cake. I'm going to make sure you get it, Tal.
Okay, thank you.
A wonderful person, and we love you very much. And thank you for entrusting us to tell your story of resilience in our book. God bless.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tal. Happy birthday. Now, our next guest was thrust into the limelight when she became Israel's spokesperson to the media. And with only 2% of female colonels in the IDF, she also broke the glass ceiling by achieving that rank. I'm thrilled to welcome Miri Eisin. Thank you so much for being with us.
An absolute pleasure, and it was wonderful being able to listen to Tal. What a great ambassador for Israel.
Isn't he? We love Tal. Like I said, he's a national treasure. Miri, we had a really wide-ranging discussion for the chapter of the book that you feature in. You served for more than 20 years in military intelligence, so you were literally in the room where it happened, as the phrase goes. And then in 2002, you became the new IDF spokesperson to the international media. How did it feel to suddenly be thrust into the role as Israel's face to the world?
Well, one of the biggest challenges for me is that I was in military intelligence, meaning I was the person that was behind the scenes. I'm not the one who's in front of the camera. So here I am talking to you. I'm very comfortable now on camera, but literally in April of 2002, in uniform, I was taken from a very secretive behind-the-scenes life and thrust into CNN, BBC, into everybody's living rooms. For me, it was probably the biggest change that ever happened to me in my life.
And you did it with aplomb. I got used to you, as I'm sure many of our viewers right now got used to you as being the empathetic voice, the sympathetic voice, and the strong voice of the state of Israel as well. Now, in the book, we discussed the concept of national resilience. and Israelis very much feel that they belong to a community. Now that helps build resilience, doesn't it?
I think that it's what makes all the difference in the world. If we take some of the examples, both of what's happening now and what's happened in the past, in Israel, even in COVID-19, which is a different type of resilience that we all need, but when we're talking about attacks from the south, now if it's about the terror balloons, if it was those knifings that were mentioned before, in any of the different time periods, Hezbollah up north, what really makes a difference inside Israel is that you know that if you live in a city, your neighbor is going to actually come and look out for you. The resilience centers inside Israel very much understand the fact that we have a community. Our community can be in our neighborhood. Our community can be in the town, in the city that we live. Sometimes it'll be, Michael, you have a few kids, it'll be the community of what we're going to call inside our schools, the families that we're with. But we most definitely have communities. And in that sense, I think we're very different nowadays from a lot of the other Western countries because we're so community-based. It's very much part of our Middle Eastern world. And I see this as our very big strength. It gives us resilience. We know somebody's there who cares about us, who asks about us, who's going to make sure that we're okay. That makes all the difference.
And I feel like we also do more things together. For better and for worse, we grieve together, we mourn together. Yom HaZikaron, Israel's Remembrance Day, is a collective act that is, something that from young to old, people take part in. They're introduced to those concepts very early in life. That makes a difference, doesn't it?
I think that one of the things that people who haven't grown up here, and think about it, you made Aliyah, I made Aliyah, Tal made Aliyah. In that sense, we're different people who moved here, and yet that is part of who we are. And I look at it in awe as a mother of 3 children, as a wife, as somebody who lives here, that inside Israel, Memorial Day is a day that we take personally. It's a day that each and every one of us are thinking about somebody that we know, or we know somebody who knows. It isn't something that happens to a specific category in society. It's about all of us. It's about our being together in its own way. And I think we discussed that a bit in the book. It's about this unwritten contract that we have inside the state of Israel, that we are very participating. We send our children to be drafted in the military. We support them. We're there for all of us. And we all collectively remember those who fell. They're the ones who gave us this country. They are part of what built us, both in resilience and in memory, and you know what? In keeping our heart, because we think about them, we understand how important it is to remember, not to forget, and to respect that memory.
And you spoke to us about the difference between being a victim and a survivor. How does that play out in Israeli life?
I think it's probably the biggest difference that I talk about when I talk to different groups in Israel and worldwide, as we do so much. Victimhood is, and my heart can go out to victims completely. I have enormous both sympathy, but you don't really actually usually have empathy with a victim. You can sympathize, you can feel sorry, but it's very hard to empathize. When we're talking about survivor, we're talking about resilience. We're talking about people who manage to go through the most enormous hardships, and they're not looking backwards at what happened to them, at blaming somebody, at finding how you can, do that in that sense as a victim. In resilience and in surviving, you're looking forward. You're talking about the future. You're looking into that future. And in Israel, in the establishment of the state, certainly when we're talking about Holocaust survivors, if we're talking about amazing individuals in Israel who have arrived here after enormous hardships, not as victims, as survivors. And that is what our country is about looking forward, about taking all of those hardships and looking around and saying, okay, got through that one, I'm going to go forward, and with a smile and with hope in your heart.
I should mention that in the book, we also profile Rabbi Israel Meir Lau, obviously an amazing example of survival after the Holocaust, and also Sherry Mandel, who talks about grieving for her son who was murdered in a terror attack. And the terror attack of Kobe Mandel was actually one of the reasons why Stand With Us began in the first place. Miri, you have love coming in from viewers in Scotland, Sweden, Germany, Italy, South Africa, in Boston, Annapolis, Boynton Beach, I hope I said that right, and Chicago, plenty more places as well. I want to put you on the spot. And, you know, you've coped with CNN and BBC and others, so you can definitely deal with Michael Dickson. If I can put you on the spot and ask you, what is the key thing that you would want to teach people when you're telling people about Israel, an audience that doesn't know about Israel? A message for our Stand With Us students, perhaps.
Israel is not one-dimensional. When I want to talk about Israel, I want to talk about Israel. There's a conflict. Let's not forget that. But Israel is also a country which is diverse, which has enormous changes and differences. I love the fact that when you talk to people in Israel, they literally are from anywhere in the world. When you talk about people coming and mixing together different cultures, different ideas, these are the aspects of Israel that don't come through when you focus only on the conflict. Don't ignore the conflict, but remember, we're not one-dimensional. No place is one-dimensional. We have enormous diversity, and we need to bring that out to the world.
It's such a great message. Miri, I want to thank you. You know how much I respect all that you've done. You're not just an amazing communicator, but you're a teacher, and an amazing teacher at that, which is the highest compliment I can pay anyone. Thank you for being part of the book.
Thank you so much, and to stand with us who do the most amazing things. My heart is with all of us.
Thank you, Miri. Now, our final guest today was a prisoner of Zion. He was imprisoned under false charges in the Soviet Union, but he emerged from the Gulag as a human rights icon. Natan Sharansky, it is an honor to have you with us. Thank you for joining us.
Shalom. I'm always glad to speak to those who stand with us.
Thank you. And Natan, you're an inspiration to so many. I was only a kid, but both myself and my co-author, Dr. Naomi Baum, campaigned for your release along with millions of others. She actually got into the Soviet Union. I was just a 9-year-old with my flashlight walking the streets of London. When we met for the chapter of the book that you feature in, you told us about what it was like to grow up in the Soviet Union. You didn't know much about being Jewish, but you remembered a small sculpture of Donatello's David with his foot on the head of Goliath in your home. Tell us about that and what that meant.
Well, that was practically the only Jewish thing which was in our life. No Jewish holidays, no Jewish language, no religion, no knowledge about Jewish holidays. The words like Hanukkah, Purim didn't exist in our life. And this small sculpture, which somehow found its way to our home, was like a good opportunity for our father to tell the story about David and Goliath, and to say that you should not be ashamed of being Jewish, because one Jewish thing which did exist in our life, it was anti-Semitism. Everyday anti-Semitism in the streets of Ukrainian towns, Stalina, where it grew, and everyday policy of anti-Semitism or discrimination of Jews in their professional path or in many other ways. And all the conversations at home were how we have to adjust to this reality. And the message of the parents was very clear: because you are Jews, you must be number one in physics or mathematics or chemistry or music or chess, doesn't matter in what, but only professional success, that's what can guarantee you or survival. And that was in fact until 1967, when the Six-Day War somehow brought me to this reality of the state of Israel and of the people of Israel and of this unique history of the struggling people, and you want to be part of it. And that's how I discovered my Jewishness.
And in 1977, of course, you were falsely accused of being a CIA spy, eventually sentenced to 13 years of imprisonment and forced labor. I guess the question relating to our theme here is, how did you not lose hope in that time?
Well, before I was arrested, I had unique 5 or more years of joining the struggle. And I became, with the time, a spokesman of 2 movements, Zionist movement and human rights movement of the Soviet Union. So in my work, in my activity, in our protests, in our demonstrations, and appeals that we prepared to the free world, I discovered the power of unity of Jewish people. In fact, we knew when we were going to the demonstration, which could not continue more than 5 minutes before you were arrested. And there are 10 or 12 of us standing in the center of Moscow with the slogans, let us go to Israel, or freedom to the political prisoners, or something like this. You know you'll be arrested, but you also know that next day, physical next day, tens of thousands of Jews all over the world will go to their protests, will call to their centers. You know that this chain, which was built by American, Canadian, European Jews between the free world and us, will not be broken. And that was giving me tremendous feeling of empowerment. And then when I was arrested and was first threatened for 1.5 years of interrogations to be sentenced to death, and then spent many years in prison, KGB tried to convince me that you are alone, that you are isolated, that Jews of the world are scared even to mention your word. I knew they're lying. Without knowing anything what's happening, I was absolutely sure that people of Israel, Jews of the world, continue their struggle. And that's what was giving this feeling of strength, independence, inner freedom, and thanks God, the real reality was exactly as it was in my imagined world of the solidarity of Jewish people, not in this so-called real world of KGB filled with fear.
It certainly was. And you told us, moving to Israel now, that the central to the survival of Israel are the ideas of identity and freedom. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, well, in fact, I believe that is deep desires of all the people of the world, of each person, to be free and to belong to something bigger than your own physical existence. And I was lucky. I didn't have identity. I didn't have freedom in my childhood. And then I discovered both. Through my identity, I just found strength to fight for my freedom and for the freedom of the other people. So I knew about this deep connection. And then you see this world, which is absolutely polarized. Today, we are in the middle of the unbelievable polarization of the world between those who believe in freedom and want to give away identity for the sake of freedom, because they believe that real freedom should have no borders, no nations, no religions, no governments, as in the imagine of the John Lennon. And those who believe in identity, in strong national pride, and are ready to give away the freedom, because they see that they believe that democracy, human rights, that's something which prevents them from displaying their identity. And in fact, Jewish people, through all their history, they were fighting for both. They discovered, they found, when they left Egypt, they found their freedom. And that's the moment from which Bible starts calling them the Am, the people. So we got our identity and our freedom together at the same time. And that's the message of the state of Israel. We are democratic state, even when we are though we are in the Middle East, but we are free democratic state among all these dictatorships. And we are Jewish state, even when we are part of the free world, which doesn't believe in or doesn't see national state as something positive. We are part of the free world, but we are proud Jewish state. And that's the secret of our strength, that here you have this deep feeling of belonging to history, to the people, to the country, and a unique feeling of fighting for the freedom, for human rights, for democracy. And that's also very important role or very important message which Jews and Israelis are giving today to the world.
You have messages of support coming in from Cape Town, from London, from South Florida, from Texas, from Alabama, from Shasta Lake, Miami, San Diego, Seattle, Marin County, Las Vegas. I could go on. I have here Berlin, Nigeria, Sao Paulo, Rome, New Jersey, and more and more. So a global audience watching us now, Natan Sharansky. Do you have any message for the students and supporters of Stand With Us who are standing against anti-Semitism and supporting Israel around the world?
Dear friends, many years ago, in 2003, in the times of Second Intifada, when Israel was in the middle of the terrorist attacks, and at the same time I was traveling all over the American universities and found more and more Jews confused, ashamed, embarrassed by anti-Israeli propaganda. Then in those days, I was very inspired to see those who decided to stand with us, to stand with Israel. And I remember I came back and said to our prime minister, I was then serving as a minister in the government of Ariel Sharon, I told him, I believe that the future of Jewish people depends on what is happening in American campuses. And that's why it is our work on the campuses is very important. In fact, then came this idea of sending Israeli Shlichim, Israelis, to different campuses, the program which I later developed in Jewish Agency. But from those days, I know, until this day, I know how extremely important is your position of young, proud Jews and Zionists at this moment when there are such awful attacks, by the way, from the left and from the right. But this confusion that you as a liberal Jew who believes in human rights, how can you be a Zionist? And you are demonstrating again and again that not only it is possible, but only if you are really a proud Jew, you have strength to fight for liberalism and for human rights and vice versa. So you are on the forefront. You are our hope. You are our supporters. And you stand with us and we stand with you. Thank you.
It's a beautiful message, and I know that many people will listen to it. I know you have another new book out called Never Alone with Professor Gil Troy, so people should read that. And in our book, ISResilience, we named the chapter that we wrote about you, David Beats Goliath. I think that the sculpture of David that you mentioned earlier really is a metaphor for how you helped to bring down the communist Soviet Union. Natan Sharansky, thank you so much for your leadership and for your inspiration.
Thank you, everybody, and a lot of health to everybody, and Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Thank you so much, Natan Sharansky. Wow, what a show. You just met 3 of the 14 amazing Israelis that feature in our new book, ISResilience, What Israelis Can Teach the World, co-written with resilience expert Dr. Naomi Baum. I feel like we only scratched the surface today, so you can get the keys to ISResilience yourself. You can pre-order the book now from ISResilience.com. That's ISResilience.com. And I hope that you enjoy reading it as much as we enjoyed writing it, and that you get inspired from it and inspired about Israel as well. Thank you to our amazing guests today, to Tal, Brody, Miri, Eisin, and Natan Sharansky, to all those who feature in the book. And before you go, don't forget to join us for a Tapestry of Voices for Israel. It's a special event. It's streaming at 6 p.m. in all time zones on Wednesday, September the 9th. We'll have live art direct from Israel. Famed painter Solomon Souza will create a masterpiece while we watch. There'll be comedy from Ilan Gold, music, plus you'll hear some inspiring and diverse voices in support of Israel from around the world. So get ready to be inspired again. That's September the 9th. Join us via the link that you just saw. That's standwithus.com/TOV. Tov, good. Tapestry of Voices. Standwithus.com/TOV on September the 9th. Until then, stay healthy, stay resilient. Thank you for standing with us, and shalom from Israel.